This episode of Future Construct is supported by Applied Software. We would like to thank them so much for supporting us. Applied Software is really on a mission to transform industries. They empower their clients and champion innovation with real-world expert consultants. So to reach them, you go to asti.com, that's ASTI.com, and please tell them that we at Future Construct and BIM Designs sent you. Thanks so much. Hi, welcome to the Future Construct podcast. I'm your host, Amy Peck. Today we have Chris Howard, who is the founder and CEO at Softeq. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Amy. Glad to be here.
So Chris, you have a long, diverse background. I'd love for you to maybe start by just talking a little bit about how you came to start Softeq. It's a long, circuitous journey, I'm sure.
Yeah, we started our 25th year here recently, and it is a long story, but I'll try to keep it brief. I've always, I say I never had a real job. I started as an entrepreneur about 35 years ago. I think the closest that I had to a real job was a co-op at IBM down at NASA during the Space Shuttle days. And there was a couple of years there where I actually got really exposed to computers. The department had one of the first IBM PCs down there. They didn't know what to do with it. And I soon talked my department manager into putting the department's PC on my desk, and I learned back then that the expert was the guy who actually read the manual, right? So I left there after a couple of years, still in college, started a company. This is when, things were taking off. And even back then, it's interesting, this is like the 1980s, right? It felt like I'd kind of missed a lot of it because Byte magazine was already like 200 pages and Microsoft was already started. And you're like, wow, I kind of missed the way. I wish I had gotten in on this early, but you never realize how early you are on some things. But anyway, ran a toolkit company for 10 years, grew that to one of the largest graphics toolkit companies in the DOS days. And then once Windows kind of got that right, Microsoft got Windows right with Windows 95, I pivoted the business into Softeq and just, restarted as a software services business that's focused on technical software development. And by that, I mean complex software development and hardware development, where, not the easy stuff like, hey, write my recipe app, but, just innovative projects like creating the first hybrid PC TV product for Compaq and projects like that. So I just saw a need for kind of a higher level of expertise in technical development.
Well, and aside from something that got me, because as I was looking through your profile, I saw that you were proficient in 10 languages, and I said to myself, how are there even 10 languages for him to learn? And then, of course, I saw, Python and C#, so it was very clever. But the other thing I noted, which I'm always impressed by, is that you mention twice, actually, in your LinkedIn profile, that you're a family man, you're married to your college sweetheart, and your grandpa. I love that personal piece, and it would be great to just talk about how your family has supported you through this time and just a little bit of a peek into Chris Howard at home.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, family is very important to me. I have 5 children. I have 3 grandkids. My kids are all in their 30s now. So we got married pretty young. Sometimes I think I had to start a business in order to support 5 children, right? So maybe they put me on the entrepreneurial path. I mean, my in-laws definitely thought I was crazy to quit a co-op job at IBM with 2 kids and 1 on the way, right? And so for many years I ran the business out of the house, and there were times in even the history of Softeq where I was not really trying to grow the company too fast because I was running the business in the house. I actually put a T1 line into my home back in the days, right? When people were using AOL dial-up and things like that. And so I thought, well, why pay brick and mortar rent? This is my rent. And it was like $2,500 for this 1.5 megabit dedicated line, but what it did was it allowed me to be at home. I had several rooms in my house dedicated to the office, but I could come out, spend time with the kids, go back in and work, come back out, do dinner and bath time, and do other activities, and all this flexibility. And the interesting thing now is back then there was a stigma about working from home, right? So I spent a lot of time trying not to talk about the fact that, hey, Disney, I'm actually just, a guy in my house, I'm working from home, and you've got this, multi-million-dollar deal on the table, right? Now everyone's working from home and they're like, hey, this is great. So when people ask me, well, how has work changed for you? It's like, well, not at all, really. I mean, feels very natural to me to be at home with family and managing that work-life balance, but taking advantages of it, right? I mean, there's definitely cons, but the pros are, hey, I can step out, have lunch, see the kids, come back in. It's really a very nice and flexible way to work. And I'm happy now, everyone's kind of on board, right? It's finally kind of breaking that wall.
You were way ahead of the curve there with working from home.
Yeah,
I think that's great.
So
I think it's true. As a parent, you weigh, having to get up and leave the house every day, and you come back late at night and you're tired. And yeah, so I think I think you built yourself the best of all worlds there.
Yeah,
absolutely. Did a really interesting talk on, why IoT deployments fail. And I think that's really important to talk about, because I think that there are so many pieces in this sort of greater infrastructure that people miss. So I'd love to maybe if you can share some points on that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, IoT, of course, is like a perfect domain for Softeq, because it involves all the pieces of our full stack development, right? So as a company, we're not just an outsourcing company. We're a company that can take an idea and make it reality, right? I mean, it's a little bit of a cliche, but I mean, we actually can actually do it and deliver it. And that's because we've always worked closely with hardware companies, but now we actually even can develop hardware, board layout, firmware, mechanical design, mobile app development, a web backend, right? And then the AI and ML and data analytics that go on after that, right? And so, when you look at an IoT project, it touches all of those things. And then that's also why, failure is higher than just, say, creating a mobile app, because you have a lot of pieces, a lot of parts, and they all have to be integrated. A lot of companies take an approach where they try to hire different partners for all those different pieces, and then they have to project manage that whole thing, get it all put together, and then deliver it, right? So it's just a challenge from the beginning, but from a technical standpoint, complexity standpoint. But then once the product gets to develop, there are other challenges, right? How do you scale this product? How do you, what's the strategy behind it? Why did you need this thing? And is it something the customer actually wants? So you have that customer side of it that they might not have thought through. And then there's also the stakeholder side, right? They might get the product developed, but they haven't really built gotten the business on board on, what are we doing with this? What are we going to, what was success look like, right? So there's a lot of, both the technical aspects of it and then the business aspects of it that people really need to think about and address. And so I think that, obviously 75% of the projects don't fail at Softeq, but that overall, that's the challenge of the IoT space. So with our company, because a lot of that is under one roof and we've done it, many, many times, then the risk of failure is reduced, and we can participate as a thought leader and kind of educate them on those potential pitfalls and make sure that they're thinking about those ahead of time. So when the project gets done, the customer is successful with it.
You've got the interoperability built in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they might not be thinking about, all of those kinds of issues, or the QA issues, or the fact that, how do we update this product in the field? Do you have a way to update the firmware once it ships? How would you fix devices out there in the field that, maybe have a bug, right? And now you can't just, send a software update. You have to have a way to update them either automatically without having the customer send them back. I mean, there's a lot of those things that you just need to think through.
I would like to thank the team at Applied Software for supporting this episode of the Future Construct podcast. With solutions for really any modern project, Applied Software is on a mission to transform industries by empowering their clients and being the champions of innovation with real-world expert consultants. They have a comprehensive array of solutions for AEC, MEP, and manufacturing with a singular focus, helping you achieve higher performance. So with software, training, support, consulting, and custom development, Applied Software has you covered for all of your workflow needs. And BIM Designs is proud to be a client and partner of Applied Software. So you can reach them at asti.com, it's ASTI.com, and please let them know that we here at Future Construct and BIM Designs sent you. You mentioned another piece, which I think is also, often overlooked, which is, how you're selling these types of projects upstream, because there's an inherent complexity to the work that you do. And, like you say, you're doing the work that's hard, right? You're doing the projects that are really difficult and solving big problems. And so are you finding that it's typically sort of coming out of one particular area who has a need, and maybe it's R&D, maybe it's IT, maybe it's a completely different department, but then how are they able to actually get budget and sell these types of projects upstream? Because that can really be a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, our customers come from kind of two ends of I think the businesses, right? So we have innovative startups that are actually trying to do something new and disruptive, right? And that's a different challenge and a different set of people. And then we have what we call the entrepreneurs. Those are the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs are the guys at Fortune 500 companies, and they're trying to disrupt from inside before they get disrupted, right? And each one has different challenges. And as far as selling upstream, one approach that we're taking now is we just announced and opened an innovation lab here in Houston, and we're helping both of these entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs kind of understand and brainstorm and innovate around, well, what is possible with technology today, and how could it be applied to my business, and then helping them create something in a cohort class that would be either a design document or a proof of concept or an MVP that then they can show to their upper management to get them excited about funding the project, and then doing the bigger development effort where you're going to go mass market. And I saw very early in my consulting career that people don't, it's hard for them to visualize software. You can't see those bits, right? You can't hold them in your hands. But if I actually created a demo for a customer, they totally got it. I said, imagine for a second that we're actually done. This is what it would look like, right? Here's kind of the UI. This is the stuff that's going to be happening. Does this look like, it would actually, solve your problem? Is it something that you could market? And that was much more powerful than just waving your hands and talking about it, right? And trying to convince your boss that this is going to be the next best thing, right? So that's one approach that we're taking now, is kind of helping them ideate, innovate, and get that earlier in the process, so that then they can kind of sell it upstream.
That makes sense. And you do a lot of, just kind of giving back, and you're a mentor. And can you talk a little bit about some of the work that you do mentoring, whether it's with code.org or other organizations?
Yeah, I think that it's one piece that I wanted to expand more and more in what I do. I mean, the code.org and mentoring and those sessions at the schools where you can talk to the kids at many different levels. Sometimes it's elementary school, sometimes it's high school, about what I've done in my career and what's possible and what they can do, and kind of open up their minds and get them excited about technology. I think that's another aspect of the innovation lab that I'm excited about, because being an entrepreneur in Houston since the 80s, it really was disappointing and shocking to me, actually, that the lack of community and support here for the tech community versus, say, in San Jose and Silicon Valley and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of tech in Texas. There's a lot of things that have been developed and have come from here, from the space program to healthcare, of course, oil and gas, there's a ton of tech in it. But even, considering Texas Instruments was founded here, Compaq is here, Dell's based in Austin. There's between Austin, Dallas, San Antonio, and Houston. There's just a lot of technology, but there wasn't this ecosystem. So with the Innovation Lab, we're actually contributing and giving back to the local community, where we're able to help local Texas founders get their ideas, off the ground and developed. To me, it's like it makes perfect sense for a startup, for example, to leverage a company like Softeq, just like Intel and Verizon and Epson and these other guys are going out to us to develop their products. We can do that same kind of world-class development for a startup, and they don't have to cobble together a team in order to do it. And then the classes in the Innovation Lab, I think are, they're educational as well. And we're looking at offering a couple of seats per class to those that, maybe it's not accessible to, or for, diversity and other reasons, that they can attend these cohorts alongside, other people, entrepreneurs, and also, like I said, other customers, other engineers, and actually learn and grow. So that's another way that we're, mentoring and giving back. And so it seems that in the last few years, Houston really has hit their stride. There's a lot of stuff going on here. There's like 30 software startup development organizations present here, and big companies are moving in. I think you mentioned that it was the Texadus, right?
Exactly. I'm one of them.
You're one of them. Yeah. You're moving to Austin or something. So anyway, it's I think that we're starting to see that swing. HP is now moving back. Even after acquiring Compaq, I just watched the Compaq campus dwindle down to nothing, right? And I think they've sold the whole thing off. But now they've built new campuses, and HP is moving this direction. It took them like 10 years to figure that out, but now they're coming. Tesla's coming. A lot of businesses are here, and there's this groundswell. The government's involved. Venture capital is not just putting money in a hole in the ground, right? They're saying, oh, well, we can actually invest in these tech companies and make money doing it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, just around, how municipalities can really, sort of breed this innovation ecosystem. And it's not magic, right? You just have to have resources, and you have to just build the community around it. Much like the infrastructure for some of your products.
Yeah, exactly. Well, right. Government support, I think, has been very key. The mayor of Houston is, leading the charge. There's, Rice University is behind the effort with the ION. There's the Canon. It's another group right down the street from us that's, incubating these companies and helping these startups. Mass challenges here. So there's just a lot of activity. And actually, I've talked to several, for the first time. I've been in business, 35 years, but never thought about talking to, I talked to a congresswoman, I talked to a councilwoman, I talked to, several people in government about what they're trying to do, for the city, whether it's public safety and other areas. And it hadn't even really occurred to me to actually talk to a member of Congress, like for our district, so that they understand what we're trying to do here. But, it makes perfect sense now. Like, well, why didn't I think about that? But it does take that whole ecosystem between government and the private sector to kind of band together and decide, hey, this is what we really want to do.
So when you're looking at the landscape of all of this emerging technology that's sort of coming fast and furious, and XR and blockchain and AI, robotics,
Mm-hmm.
Are there areas that you're seeing in your business that you're getting a lot of questions about, or mm-hmm. that companies are really focusing on?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing right now, of course, is the AI and ML component. I mean, people are really seeing what AI and ML can do with the data. What's happened is they've done things like developed a product that maybe collects a lot of data, video data, other kinds of data, and then they don't know what they're going to do with it, right? And they really need that AI and ML to be able to discover and analyze, and target, right? Like, say you've got a drone and you're doing maybe oil line or gas line inspections, and you don't have the time to sit there and look through the whole thing, but you want an AI to go through and kind of identify either potential areas that the pipeline's leaking, or there's some other, why is this truck parked over here by the gas line? What are they doing? Stuff like that. So I think AI and ML are the biggest things, and the most, say, near term and accessible, right? For really everyone. And if you're not thinking about how to apply AI to your own business, you're probably a little behind the curve there.
Yeah. And there's, we talk about big data, but it's not big data anymore. I mean, it's massive data. And especially as we start to get these wearables, and it's this two-way pipe of leaving data and then consuming data. It's sort of the Wild West out there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no one really cares. I mean, it is a challenge to develop something like, the Fitbit, the hardware, getting it small enough, the battery. There's a lot of technical challenges here, but no one really cares about this so much as what can I see and do and analyze on the app, which is then tied to the back end, which then has an AI ML component and gives you all that information based on, your sleep history and your fitness history and all that. I think there's just going to be continuing to be those kinds of things happening, not just like heartbeat detection and irregularities. I mean, there's going to be more and more analysis. You can be so much, in the health space, right? You're just so much more aware of what's going on with yourself, or you can be, right? And I think I've got like 5 years of history in like all different kinds of categories, from, weight to blood pressure to fitness to steps, and stuff that could still probably be used and applied, once they get those algorithms online, to kind of like historically say, hey, maybe there's something here you want to look at, or maybe you might want to do something different, in your life.
That's an interesting thread, because traditionally, I think, consumers are sort of like la 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 when it comes to high tech, but we're saying the same thing. We've got our wearables, we're tracking our health. How do you see that evolution of us as consumers, as individuals, starting to take more control over our data? And do you see that there's an opportunity now for us to maybe build this kind of interface where, even if it's even beyond sort of just medical history, financial history, all manner of data about ourselves?
Yeah, it's tricky, right? Because, you would like to just have your own data, own your own data, and not share it with anyone. But then on the other hand, all these companies are now aggregating everyone's data, and there is some power in kind of sensing the patterns and understandings between one person and another person. And so it's a balance. I don't really have an answer for it. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be something we're going to have to address, and who owns your data, right? And whether it's DNA sites or fitness trackers or Google and Facebook. I mean, it's something that we've kind of allowed, to happen like unfettered, right? Everyone just, hey, share it, I don't care, so. And we're just kind of trusting those guys right now to be, good custodians of our data. And unfortunately, they're not always good custodians.
Yeah, definitely the genie is out of the bottle there. Our data is out there.
Right.
So I'd love to shift gears, and I ask this question of everyone to wrap up. And you obviously spent a lot of time thinking about the future tech, got grandkids. So if you could sort of project yourself into 2030, 2040, 2050 and beyond, and you could create a gadget or just sort of this lifestyle of your personal future, what would it be and what would it do?
Well, I've always told my production guys that I wanted to work on two things. One was a time machine, and from the standpoint of not going back in time, but just giving me more time in the day, because it seems like I don't have enough hours in the day or the night to do everything that I wanted to do. So I don't know if it's time compression or whatever, but and the other one is, of course, the transporter teleportation thing. But those probably aren't really achievable in the next 20, 30 years. I'd say what I'd like to see, and something I'm trying to focus on more this year in Houston, is trying to identify startups that are working on age tech. So I think there's a big gap in technology and technology supporting the elderly. So if I think about 30 years from now, I'll be 87 or something like that. And, I hope that I'm still able to, turn on the holographic TV and get my clock from stop blinking, whatever the thing is back, in the future. But even now, I've been frustrated by just, supporting, either my parents or grandparents with technology and making it accessible and maintainable for them. And we're definitely, nowhere near that yet, right? And so I would like to try to, work on those types of products and kind of help build that future so that, when I get there, I'm able to use it and people that aren't as technical as we are, I don't know how, I imagine the frustration and how difficult it is for someone that's not in this industry to actually interact with these technical products that we develop. Right. And that's why we're all like the IT persons for our family, because they're like, how does this stuff even work? And how do I get my Apple TV working again or whatever? Of course, the secret is, did you turn it on and off again? That's pretty much 90% of what you have to know.
That's all it.
But even that, like, well, did you restart it just like before even calling me, right? Just like step one, because that's what I'm going to do. But I can't do that from here, right? I have to go to the house and actually click the buttons for them or whatever. I want to be able to maintain it and do it and like remotely, like with my grandmother or whatever, if they're located in Wisconsin or Minnesota, right? So even using an iPod, try to describe to an older person how to use an iPod, right? And you start listing out the steps and you're like, wait, this is supposed to be an easy to use device. This is Apple, their UI and everything, right? It's actually freaking hard, and once you list it out, how do you change your playlist? It's only 12 steps, and no problem. Just spin the wheel and click, 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 click. But it's too much for them. So I would really like to see some improvement in how we, target, elderly and then also less skilled people with the technology. It doesn't have to have a gazillion features, right?
Yeah, I think that's great. I've seen, the Wi-Fi names. It's one of them in a building near me said, "It's this one, Mom."
Yeah, exactly.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah, why can't you just, plug a Wi-Fi router in and kind of have it more or less start working, or at least be managed remotely? That would be like a challenge. It's kind of a chicken and egg thing. Like, it's got to get on the internet, but then now you want to try to maintain it, and just those challenges of like, your parents helping out and deciding, hey, what if I push and hold this button on the back? I think that'll fix it. Like, no, you just reset it to factory settings and made my job a lot harder, right? Don't do that. Unplug it and plug it back in again. That's all you need to do.
Okay, well, I just thought of a new product. It will be the MDM, which will be mobile mom and dad device management.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
Let's work on that.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of stuff that we're making use of, from putting in Nest for thermostats and Ring doorbells and Amazon Echoes and all that. So, and giving them a phone, and now they can manage their whole house. And it's just, there's a lot of powerful stuff, but it's still too hard,
Well, I look forward to those products because I'm going to need them as well. And thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, definitely, Amy. I enjoyed it. You have a good weekend.
Thank you so much.
Mm.